Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails and Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, author of this little book right here. These other ones as well, where you can get all that down in the description, where you can get my funny merchandise. It's like no other. It's pretty fun. Yeah, hit that link tree. Hit me up. Find me on all my social medias. It's all down there. Check it out. Fiddle about, because you know how I like it when you fiddle about. And speaking of fiddling about, I never fiddle about when it comes to you guys, the family here, the awesome people, my Metallica family, my Dave Gone fams. I mean, you guys, the whole family here is really, really awesome. And I sometimes get to see your faces on my membership. So it's really cool that I just have all these people that are actually subscribing. I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for the amazing people here that are just awesome, cool, kickback, loving music, having a conversation, and bonding over our love for rock and roll. Can't tell you truly from the bottom of my heart, it really, really means the absolute world to me. So thank you guys. Thank you so, so much for just being part of this family. Totally awesome. And speaking of what's awesome, you guys know if you see this, we're going to have some readings. So we're going to do today, maybe for a couple days, because, I was talking with Danny, we were talking about a couple things, and we both agreed, May of 1988, I was surprised we could walk at the end of May. But that's not what we're going to be reading about today. We're going to be reading about someone else because I get a lot of questions about this guy. He's a little bit snarly faced. He's got a bit of an attitude. But guess what? He's one of the sweetest guys you'll ever meet. We're going to be talking about Dave Mustaine today. And to kick it off, we are going to have a little Malibu sunrise, you guys. So, bartender in Missouri, worst 2 years of my fucking life as an adult. Yeah. Where I worked as a bartender, the owner used to make these. I used to make them for him all the time. So, and I ran out of beer. So, this is what we got. I've got my bar stocked, but no beer today. So, all right, you guys. So, grab your Malibus, kick up your feet, and let's have a little cocktails and rocktails. Cheers, big ears. Definitely good. Definitely going to swallow that over Kip Winger. A little bit sweeter than I care for my drinks to be, but I love me some orange juice. So, yeah, can't go wrong with the Malibu Sunrise. If you like that little coconut flavor, you're going to love this. All right, you guys. So, let's get started. We're going to start with February of 1988 because I'm telling you, 1988 was a busy year. I was a senior in high school. I was still 17, getting ready to turn 18 in August of that year. Don't believe half of what you read about my birthday on the internet. I don't know where people got July. I'm not a Cancer. I'm a Virgo. Very happy Virgo. So, yeah. So, still, this is February of 1988. Knee deep into rock and roll. Knee deep into the groupie life. Been at it for a couple years, pretty much consistent. 2-3 years at this point. And when you're young, you just live for the boys. You really did. And that was no different. Like I said, 1988, May of 88. We might hear a little bit about that this week. Who knows? Okay, so this is February. This is Dio and Megadeth. Megadeth was just opening up for Dio. They weren't headlining their own venues yet. And a lot of times when you're on that first tour and you're a very, very young band just starting out, you're not going to have the biggest budget. So you're going to be sharing rooms. So much fun. Hey. Groupies, we have to deal with a lot of semantics when it comes to rock and roll. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. None of us had a car. None of us had a car we could drive to get to the bands. Kristen didn't have one. My mom needed hers. And Tracy was grounded from hers. Danny was back in St. Louis, hanging out. Where was Danny at this time? She was either still in Missouri or had just come back and was living with a guy. Okay, so it was me, my friend Tracy, and Kristen. So the life of teenage groupies who still lived at home was never uncomplicated. But hurdles and steel gates never stopped any of us getting to the band. Dio and Megadeth were playing the next day, and since I had figured out this whole night before show thing, I was determined to get to Megadeth's lead singer, Dave Mustaine. Because a lot of women don't realize, the band's in town the night before sometime. We didn't know their itineraries back then. Sometimes we could find it in Rolling Stones or Metal Edge, but really we didn't know the itinerary. We just knew when they were coming into town, what bands they were, or hotels they were most likely going to stay at. So we just kind of winged it. We wingered it. Okay, anyway. So I had figured out this whole night before show thing, and I was determined to get to Megadeth's lead singer, Dave Mustaine, because it wasn't them picking us, it was us picking them. We were at the 70s, ladies. We didn't just show up and kind of, oh, he likes me, I'll go with him. We went, no, you don't trust me, you're coming with me. You're my man, Candy. That's us 80s ladies. All right. Kristen was already at my house, so all we needed was to get Tracy and be on our way. When push came to shove, I did the only thing I could think of. I asked my mom to give us a ride downtown. She was in an aware kind of denial that her daughter was a groupie. She really didn't know what that was. She just knew I was running wild with a bunch of rockers. Being the great mom she is and wanting always to know where her daughter was, therefore letting it be known she would be there if I needed her, she unknowingly agreed to give us a ride to our sinful escapades. Because a lot of people think, well, what kind of mother raised a groupie like you? Fuck you. I had a really incredible mom who was a top educator, not just in the state, but in the nation. She was very highly recognized president of United States Education Association, Utah Education Association. She was teachers, principals, superintendent. She was an amazing woman who used to sneak out in high school and go sing with the band with her two cousins. They were the backup band. They were the backup singers. So she got it. But she just, when it comes to push, comes to shove, and you can't stop your child from doing something, at least you know where they are. And she met a lot of the bands, so she would be, and that's why they were so good to us, because they met our moms. They met Danny's. I don't think they ever met Kristen's, but it was a whole, at least our mom knew where we were. She didn't like it, but she could be there for us, and that's what mattered. We were safe, we were sound, we were in one piece, and none of us were knocked up. So that's always a plus. So don't give my mom shit. She was a fucking amazing woman. So, okay. After picking up Tracy and having mom secretly do the rounds, which means driving by all the hotels downtown to find where the tour buses are, we saw some buses in front of the Red Lion Hotel. And I'll do another episode downtown where I go through all the hotels and show you where I'm talking about. I told my mom to stop, and she let us out on the opposite side of the street. As she pulled away, all she saw in her rearview mirror was her daughter and friends running across the street and into the open door of a band's waiting tour bus. Because that was pretty much all it took. We got out of the car. They saw us. People were on that tour bus. And as we were running and hit the sidewalk, that tour bus door flung open. It was like, "Hi, ladies." And we're all, "Hey." And that's all my mom sees in her rear view. Her daughters and friends getting sucked into a tour bus. Oh, my poor mom. Yeah, we did kind of give her a run for her money, didn't we? All right. So she must have been oh so thrilled. I am still kind of half surprised mom didn't turn that car around and knock on that bus door to drag me off. Because she did my older sisters. Woo. I mean, not from tour buses, but from small town situations. Okay. So it was easy. Seriously. As we got out of the cars, the guys on the bus must have seen us. They beckoned to us before we hit the sidewalk, so Tracy, Kristen, and I ran off into the waiting rock and roll night. We did the usual round of intros and were handed beers. I was trying to figure out who was who. Since it was Dave Mustaine I was after, none of them really mattered, but could come in handy in helping me get to him. I was a calculating little bitch, wasn't I? We all were. We all knew who we wanted. We were going to go get him. And I don't mean that because I think it's a hot and special. It's no, because we were determined to get who we wanted. That's what we did. Okay. I was starting to get all James Bond on the situation. There were 3 Americans and 1 English bloke that were entertaining us ladies in their tubular abode. Once we settled in, I figured out that we were with the roadies from Dio and their bass player, Jimmy Bain. God rest you, Jimmy. He was the English muck among us and had instantly taken a liking to my friend Tracy. I was flirting up the situation, but not really interested in anyone that surrounded us at the moment. But But it wasn't even an hour into the night yet. Much more could be made of it. After a couple beers on the bus, it was decided that we would move the party to Jimmy's Hotel, the ever-infamous and now home away from home Marriott Hotel. But first, some drugs needed to be secured, and so the party could last all night. Of course, I had the numbers for that, so went with one of the roadies to arrange the necessary favors. That took about a half an hour and one full face plant into the lift later, 'cause yeah. While walking into the elevator to wait for the delivery with the roadie, I tripped on my heels and fell into the little metal box, scraping my knees in the process. Nice roadie guy bandaged me up with the perverted care in his room. Apparently he was a leg man. Too bad he never got mine wrapped around him, although he did beg. I was bandaged for the rest of the evening, which would actually come in handy as a flirty use later in the night. Okay, so let me talk about that. He did beg, because he did. It was the 80s. We were all used to kind of getting what we wanted because, you know, you guys think the 70s was like magical and musical and all this stuff. Everybody's amused. The 80s was fucking hedonism. We were all getting off every day. These guys were getting off in every town they hit. So you kind of was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm not getting off in this town? It becomes a desperate situation. So, yeah. We were the women in charge of everything because, like I said, the guy was on his knees bandaging my fucking... I still have a scar from that too, by the way. It's not a fun night if you don't come home with a bruise or a bandage. Okay. I was bandaged for the rest of the evening, which would actually come in handy as a flirty use later in the night. So never be afraid of that stuff, ladies. Use it to your advantage. You want to be a manizer, not a womanizer, a man-eater? You want to go and live your life as wild and crazy and as in control as we did? Know who's boss. Be confident in yourself, know what you will and won't do, and know when to walk away, know when to fold them, know when to expect the walk of shame, and own that walk of shame. Okay. Finally, after meeting up with the delivery man, I walked into the room with the roadie that had been put in charge of me. Kristen and Tracy were about a half an hour ahead of me and already tagged and bagged by Jimmy and Clive from the band Dio. I still had my sights set on the opening band's red-headed, scowling lead singer. So lucky for me, as I strutted through the door, there he was in all his metal splendor. His eyes immediately fixated on me. The curiosity squinted as I made my way towards him in my usual nonchalant fashion. I said my hellos and got introduced around the room to a couple new faces before making my way to where Dave sat, which was in the corner of the room at a table next to an intimidating pile of schmocaine. Dio's bass player, who was attached to Tracy, bought me a grolsch. I hit a joint that had just been lit, and contemplating switching man when I saw Craig, Dio's lead guitarist, walk into the room. Woo! Very hot. Well, if Dave didn't work out, at least I had a backup. Ladies, if you want to have a menagerie of lovers, you gotta collect them. Gotta have a backup once in a while. And the party was off like a bat out of hell. Switching conquest seemed to be out of the question to Dave Mustaine, though. I was tagged in his mind already. This would be typical Dave, it turned out. He was that hot and that confident, yet somehow quite sweet and charming. Yes, I am talking about the crusty-mouthed lead singer of Metal Thrashers Megadeth, people. As I got closer, he pulled out the only chair left in the room and called out in my direction. Direction. Hey, come sit here. I haven't met you yet. And I could just see Dave. He was just kicked back in that little chair, kind of slouched down, kind of curious scowl going on, and we're both Virgos. So when two Virgos meet each other and their sexual energy, fucking watch out. It's going to be just off the fucking chain, you guys. The flirting, everything. So Dave and I are both, so yeah. He said, I haven't met you yet. Okay, I stood still for a second, looking at his smirking lip with my raised eyebrow. before being pushed over to him by Kristen. Kristen was such an instigator this night. I wasn't going to just come when he beckoned. Oh no. I had to be a challenge in some way, and this was going to be one fun rocker to play with. I could already tell. I sat in the chair on the other side of the table and told him my name. He shook my hand with his left one, where I noticed a gold band. Upon seeing my face looking at his ring, Dave immediately saved his ass. "Oh, don't worry, I'm not married. I just wear this to keep the ugly girls away," he immediately exclaimed. And he really wasn't married to Pam yet. They had just actually started dating. So I think he was dating Doro Pesh at the time. So I don't know if he wore the wedding ring for Pam or Doro. I'm not sure. But he was absolutely not married yet. I don't like to do married men if I know. Bye. All right, so, and back then we didn't have the internet, so we had to rely on these guys' words. We had to trust them. We had to trust them with our lives. They trusted it with ours. Because you're running around the world when you're not even 18 years old with rock stars on planes and buses and, going into other countries. They don't know it, though. We had fake IDs, like I said. So it was actually true. He did not marry his wife Pam until a couple of years later, which, God love him, they are still married. That's awesome. "Well, if you aren't really married, then it won't bother you to take it off for the night, then will it?" I dared to sort of demand. "As long as you are going to be taking off your dress for me later, then I will be taking the ring off," Dave bounced back. Take my dress off. Of course I was going to take my dress off for him. That was the plan in the first place before I even got there, wasn't it? I mean, I had tagged and bagged Mustaine in my mind long before I walked into that room. This conversation was merely a formality, really. I looked at Dave with a sideways smile. Deal. "Let's celebrate with the line," Dave exclaimed, like a silly little boy as he chopped out some schmo from the pile and sat between us, and invited Kristen and others over to indulge. Dave slipped off the ring and stuck it into his pocket. I sat there giggling to myself that I got him to do it as he pulled my chair closer to him so I could do some of his offering. I only did that stuff probably 5 times in my life. It wasn't my thing, but, I was still, I just did it. I don't even know why. I didn't even like it at that point, but I was like, okay, I'll do it. But ladies, don't do anything to impress anybody else. I was just partying. That was it. There was no other reason. I was not trying to impress anybody. Don't do drugs like that. Smoke weed. Okay, because it's legal. All right. So Kristen walked up behind me, accepting this indulgence and getting between Dave and I's deal. "Well, his ring is off. Didn't I hear something about a dress having to be off as well?" my friend chided. And I had this black, tank dress on, little mini skirt, mini black dress, and I had been wearing my purple suede fringe jacket, this little scarf, how we used to tie scarves around our waists in the 80s, ladies, you know what I'm talking about. And the straps on my dress kept falling off, and I kept pulling them up, and Dave's like, "Oh no, you don't have to do that." So, okay, well, his ring is off. Didn't I hear something about a dress having to be off as well, my friend chided. "Yeah," Dave said in sarcastic agreement. "Dave Mustaine, I will take this dress off for you tonight, but not until I am damn good and ready," I replied with a raised eyebrow and a teasing smirk, snorting up some booger sugar. "Well, can I at least see your tits then?" "Okay," I easily agreed. Kristen, coming up from doing hers off the table, then slipped the straps of my little black dress down my shoulders and down past my perky breasts. Dave's face went into a little dropped jaw salivation, and he got that little sideways smile he always does. My girls are small, but yet they are perky and shaped well and can make men drool. Because not every man wants big tatas, ladies. Be comfortable in your own skin, own your body, enjoy yourself. Literally. All right. Seems Dave Mustaine had become their latest victim. He reached over as if I knew he owned him He reached over as if he knew he owned them for the night, which he did, and cupped them both in his hands. He had nice hands, strong but gentle. That actually is Dave Mustaine to a T, strong and gentle. He is the funniest and most respectful kind of man, and no matter how much he growls for the fans, he will always be good to his groupies. I was rather enjoying the cup play Dave was giving my girls, and didn't realize that we had a crowd coming around us only to see the titillation. You see how I played those words? But also do some of the schmocaine Dave had been guarding from the time I walked in the door. I blushed a little from the company. Mustaine, sensing this, took away his hands and pulled at my dress, leaving one strap off my shoulder in that flirty kind of way. He said that we would get to the rest later at his hotel where we could be alone. I smiled and felt safe at the gentleman he showed himself to be. If you don't feel safe, ladies, don't be going no place. Best advice we got from one of our rock and roll dads, a tour bus driver: don't paint yourself into a corner that you can't get out of. All right. The party continued for a few more hours. The booger sugar went up most of our noses and the booze got less and less. Before any of our happy asses knew it, it was time to pair off for the night. Because that happens at the end of rock and roll. Everybody pairs off or somebody goes home alone. And that's just sort of how it goes. You go into your own private little hotel rooms and you have your private little Idahos. And I loved it. Oh, that's my favorite thing about rock and roll. When you're just alone in the hotel room with your rocker and it's just you guys. And it's not just about the sex. It's not just about all that. It's about having that intimacy, personal intimacy with that man, and knowing you secured another lover for yourself. Because like I said, I'm a fucking man-eater. No ends if or buts about it. Okay, so before any of our happy asses knew it, it was time to pair off into the night. Dave was staying at another hotel than Kristen and Tracy's men, so we hugged our goodbyes, secretly congratulating ourselves on yet another rock and roll conquest. And we parted ways. We all seemed so grown up with our rockers, not at all like the high school teens that we were as we left each other in the company of them. Mustaine and I got to the Marriott shuttle van and headed to the Holiday Inn down the street. 'Cause we just, you feel so grown up with these guys because they're not treating you like kids. And when you're at that age, you're at that cusp and you don't want to be treated like a child anymore, So that was part of the lure for us, was being treated as the women we were at that moment in time, the emerging women that we were, All right. We kissed for the first time in the van. Dave had been very respectfully possessive of me during the powwow at the other hotel, but had not made a move until we were in the van in a semi-alone state. Oh, he was a very good kisser. He pulled a little on the back of my hair and kissed my neck before growling into my ear. Oh, that was so sexy. I remember that moment. Oh, I loved it. Oof, still getting chills. Dave and I made our way to his room. We didn't make it far before running into the tour manager and the bass player. Dave Ellefson, who will be known as Junior from here on out. The bass player was a sweet-faced boy who didn't make any bones about thinking I was cute. We all know what happened a few years later. If you don't, get the book. All right. He almost seemed to try and steal me away from his bandmate. Junior would actually achieve this a few years later. Mike, the tour manager, I think that was his name, asked if we wanted to come and join them for some honey oil. What is that? I asked curiously and bright-eyed. And Dave, being the man that he was, said, if she doesn't know what that is, then we are not going to be turning her onto it, Dave said rather sternly. And I'm glad he stopped me. Turns out they were smoking Heron. Thank you to the ever-sweet and respectful Dave Mustaine for not letting me start that. I never did it because of the fact that he was just getting into it, and if he was stopping me, then I knew it can turn into a serious addiction, as I believe it did for him. Also turns out that because they were a new band, and at the time only opening for Dio, the guys were still sharing rooms. Yay! The tour manager happened to be Dave's roomie and at the time, so he made arrangements for us to be alone for at least 2 more hours. Good call. Dave and I made it into his room, and finally he got me out of my little black dress. He walked over to my naked self and picked me up before tossing me onto the bed. Ah! Dave ravaged me like he had something to prove, and he proved himself to me 3 times before that tour manager began knocking on the door. It would be another 100 knocks in 20 minutes before Dave finally let him into his own room. Dave is the alpha male, that is for damn sure. And just for the record, I was cool with him like tossing me onto the bed. It was like, woohoo! I don't know. I like that when the man just, he wants you that bad. You've enticed him enough to want him that he wants you that bad. I love it. All right. The tour manager, being used to certain ways of the road, asked me if I needed a cab home. Seems that Dave didn't usually like women to stay the night, but Dave disagreed with the tour manager and told him I was staying. He promised my friends that he would take care of me, and he was going to do just that. Plus, he wanted to fuck me again in the morning. I like morning sex. Who doesn't? Raise your hand. All right. It would be easier to do that if I was in the same room, he said sarcastically. The lights went out and we fell asleep, or so I thought. Dave was curled up next to me, and the tour manager was supposed to be snoring away in his own bed. So when I felt tapping on my foot, waking me from my passed out bliss, I was rightfully confused. Tapping on my feet. I heard again and again, Allison, wake up. Hey, let me see your ass. Followed by a tap, tap, tap on my foot. Dude, don't be playing my game with me, that tap, tap, tap. You're only gonna lose. The lights were not on and the room was pitch black. I opened my eyes and lay still, trying to figure out what was going on. This could not be Dave at my feet, since he was face to face with me, still sleeping. I had to adjust my eyes and trick my brain into figuring out what the fuck was going on. I still felt the tapping and heard my name. It was not going away now that I was awake, so this was no nightmare. It was about to be. I looked down towards the end of the bed and caught the scene in the little bit of light that was coming through the crack in the curtain. There, standing at the foot of the bed, sausage in hand, was Mike, the tour manager. Seems someone was a little bit excited at even the thought of a hot naked girl in the room. Never mind the red-headed growler sleeping next to me. Oh no! This guy was standing there in the dark, doing his thing and begging to see my butt. That's rock and roll for you. No shame in the family, man. Finally comprehending what was going on, I told the tour manager to go away. I was not going to show him my ass. My ass was for Dave Mustaine that night, not for his lonely tour manager. Tour manager stayed and begged a little more before Mustaine woke up with a vengeance. Hey, he said loudly and silently. And sternly. Oh, loudly and sternly. Guess I should put on my glasses. She said no, and she means no. So get the fuck in the bathroom with that shit and leave her alone. So, I mean, that's rock and roll. Very protective of its groupies. I mean, that's the rock and roll I've always known, you know? No is no is no. And Dave Mustaine heard no, and you know what? Good on him, because taught me how to say no. I can see why he's, I bet you he's the same way with his wife and daughter. Probably taught his son well. Okay. So my hero, Dave, saved me for the second time that night. As long as he and I were awake, I may as well thank him. He yelled at the tour manager to stay in the bathroom until he said to come out, and we went out it again. Might as well. I mean, 4 times in one night. I mean, like I said, when 2 Virgos are going at it, it's just fucking crazy good. All right. We finally fell asleep at the crack of dawn. I was happily exhausted and Dave more than satisfied. Time to sleep the schmocaine and the booze off. The next morning, Tracy came and got me from Dave's room. He walked me down, opened the car door for me, and made sure he had my name for the 14th time for the ever-coveted guest list. Because you know what? Part of being addicted to rock and roll, everybody thinks it's that rock star that's the real, addiction, that's the prize, that's what you're going after. Oh no. It culminates in that pass in hands that tells everybody else you're with the band. So yeah, the ever coveted guest list. Absolutely. Tracy took me back to my house where she and I got ready for the show. Another full day of rock and roll. Oh, because Tracy had her car. Another full day of rock and roll to go. Not sure my schmocaine hangover was helping my attitude at this point. I even wondered if I should sleep this one out for the day. Kristen called and talked me out of it, so Tracy and I swung by and picked her up on the way to our rock and roll castle, the Salt Palace. We parked at the Marriott as usual and ran across the street to the Salt Palace. As we sashayed past the front row Joes, waiting for hours outside the venues in hopes of snagging the best GA spots, I realized that I was one of those girls I had seen merely a couple years ago. Here I was, strutting my stuff to the back parking lot and its selective safety. I was now the big bad groupie sidestepping the front doors and long, tedious lines for the more secretively boisterous adventure called backstage. I silently hoped that one of the girls in the overcrowded line was watching me and a little envious and wishful, like I had been. But then again, if she was and she decided to take the same path as me, I would probably squash her at some point anyway. Okay, I'm not really a bitch. It's just you have to understand. Groupie back then, like you watch all the LA documentaries, that scene was extremely competitive. Salt Lake City was a competitive groupie scene. We didn't bother anybody, me and my friends. We were just kind of like, we're here to impress the band. We're here to... And none other groupies ever came out. But if somebody talked shit about us, we would find out there'd always be some guy walking onto the tour bus going, those chicks out there are talking shit. Oh, really? So we'd deal with that for about 5 minutes of our time and then go on with our day. And like I said, it was very competitive. There was a lot of shit talking that we didn't do, but if you were talking shit about us, of course we were going to be fucking bitches. Everybody is. All right. So as soon as Tracy and Kristen and I arrived to the back parking lot and came into view of the buses, we were taken away from the sidewalk and those hoping for autographs that were just beginning to invade our backstage world, because the autograph hounds kind of invaded us. Because they do it for money, not the people who just want an autograph. It's the people who do it for money. Okay, and locked into our secluded rock and roll fantasies. Okay, we were taken away from the sidewalk, from people hoping for autographs that were just beginning to invade our backstage world, and locked into our secluded rock and roll fantasies, drinks in hand as usual. Dave had been alerted to my presence by one of the roadies from the night before. He came onto the bus and we snuck into the back lounge to do an attitude-adjusting bump of schmocaine. We did a little more than that bump while we were back there anyway, so just what we both needed, as neither of us were very sociable in our little smoked-out hangovers. Turns out what I didn't know, a girl Davany, yes, her real name, that would become very much a beloved sister in our groupie pack, had given Dave a while before I got there. I didn't know this until we walked into the Salt Palace to go to Dave's dressing room and saw the look on her face. When Dave and I stopped so he could look at one of his guitars, Davany came over and tried to joke that we might as well kiss each other, since I was going to, man, she had just done the same thing too earlier. All I could do was tell her that I already had him the night before several times, and that she was the one who was the dupe. And now I was here. And at just 17 years old, I was a stealthy bitch and could even be loved by the girls I bested. No offense to Davany, as I said, she was new to this scene, but was badass enough to quickly become a part of our little clique. That, and she was the girl next door who was absolutely pretty, had lips like a blowfish, and the sense of humor of a sailor wrapped up in silk and lace. I love that girl to this day. Because, and Davany is still a good friend. I love her to death. There was just, when I'm writing the book, I'm writing at what I was feeling at that moment in time. And I was 17 years old. For the criticizers and the haters, how would you react to a situation at 17? Because a lot of people are like, she was such a bitch to the other girls. I was fucking 15, 16, and 17 years old. In an incredibly competitive groupie scene. But that was actually the first day I had met Davany. I had seen her around a couple times, but that was the first time I had actually met her, because she was still a couple years younger than me. So, yeah, she's absolutely amazing. I love her to death. She was there when we made the metallic alphabets. I mean, she was just one of those kickback classic women who, again, we just felt like these worldly women when we traveled the world with these guys, and we all did it. And we were all such different people for those ages, you know? All right. Dave overheard our little tete-a-tete and couldn't help but smirk adoringly in my direction. Half of what turned him on about me was probably my attitude, because he had the same one. I walked off with his hot lead singer ass as a trophy on my arm and enjoyed the rest of the day. Dave and I had a quick after-show shag in his dressing room before he left town with the usual "see you next tour." And that we did. Next tour. So there you go. That's the first night I actually met our Dave Mustaine. Oops, our little wild child. And like I said, he was very sweet. He was very, very protective. I know I can come across as a bitch sometime, but like I said, when I'm writing this book, I'm very honest about how I was feeling at 17 years old. And I wanted kind of make a precursor about that because, again, we had fake IDs that said I was 22 years old. Back then, you could take your sister's, your friend's sister's, whatever's birth certificate to the DMV and get an ID with your picture and their name on it. So I had one of my with my sister. She knows now. She didn't know then. So her daughter has a fake ID now. It's still a time-honored tradition. If you think your kids don't have a fake ID, you're so fucking high. Anyway, so, and some people's won't, but a lot of people's will when they hit college. So we had fake IDs. I don't want people to think that these guys were, getting all R. Kelly and perusing our high schools. Not at all. They didn't even know we were in high school. They didn't even know anything about us besides what we let them know. And like I said, a lot of people have a hard time kind of dealing with my attitude that these guys were our man candy. We were very stealth seductresses. 100%. Me and my friends still are. Still are. I still see the look on Danny's face. I still see Kristen with her husband. I still see how we snag our man. Shooting fish in a barrel sometimes. And people give us shit for being like very proud that we were man eaters and that they were our man candy, but it worked. It was something that turned those guys on because it's like we didn't need them. We could find anybody we wanted, not because we were the hottest chicks on the block and everybody thinks, but we were pretty hot. And don't be mad at me for saying that. I think we could all look back on ourselves and be like, fuck yeah. We were little vixen bitches, weren't we? So that's all, and I hope you guys enjoyed this chapter because, like I said, 1988, busy as fuck. Let's see, who was after that? That was February. A few days later was Kiss. Oh, why am I burping? Like, what is with the bodily functions today? Okay, sorry about that, you guys. So thank you to everybody who got to the end of the video. Thank you guys for really listening and for really getting it and not being judgmental on me and my friends, for having fun, for being wild childs. I think a lot of people really deserve justice and stuff for bad things that happened in their lives, but a lot of people had a blast doing what we did at the same age and wouldn't do it now, would not recommend it now. But so thank you for people who are not judgmental, who are just kicked back, enjoying it, who lived it with the same we did. Thank you so much for always listening, being cool, getting to the end of the video. And for those of you just lurking, just discovering me, go down, hit that subscribe, hit the share. Let's build it, because this is a whole new take on the groupie life and rock and roll. Shit you've never heard before. Because everybody else wants to glorify and fantasize it and make it into something very almost famous, which it was never rock and roll, dude. Ask him about the tour bus. Oh, God. The tour bus toilet alone will fuck up your whole fantasized version of being a groupie. If you know, you know. So hit that subscribe, hit the share, hit my bells, and we will see you on Cocktails and Rocktails. Cheers, big ears.